Hi everybody, welcome to another video on the channel. I'm really excited about this video here today. We have a special guest here, Coach John Bancheri, who is a legendary coach. I'm going to say that out loud so he knows what I think about him. I first kind of became aware of John back in 2013. We took a bunch of kids to Henley with the Tulsa Rowing Club, and I saw Grand Valley State at the Reading Town Regatta, watched them fly by a length or two up, and this was only an 800-meter race with about 300 to go. And I remember thinking to myself, that's a well-coached crew. And since then, this is actually the first time John and I have talked face to face. Our relationship has been one of watching YouTube videos and videos that he's put in Facebook posts and invited me in, and a lot of what I've learned has come from John. And I'm just really excited to have this conversation, share this on the channel. We got an interesting topic today. It's a topic that I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. But John, welcome to the channel, and thanks for being here. We'll do a quick bio here, but say hi to people.
Hello, how's everybody?
All right, so we're going to go ahead and switch here. All right, so John, you see the slides there?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So by way of introduction here, this is John's bio here. Started coaching in 1984, West Virginia, University of Charleston, Wichita State. We up in Tulsa here. We've done a lot of races at the Frostbite. I think you were probably one of the founders of that event, I would think.
I am the founder of that event.
There you go. So love that event. It's a great 3K sprint through those bridges. Lots of fun. Done that a few times myself.
Yeah.
Marietta.
You only like it because it's a small river, just like the ones over in England.
That's true.
You felt like home.
It did feel like that. But I do like the bridges too. The bridges are really low, so it's a cool event. And also you can
and costly.
Yeah. But the kids get a lot of races in a day, so that's good. You can send them up there 3 times in a day and get a lot of racing. So thank you for
and you know what Ted Nash says about that?
What's
Ted
that?
Nash said about that, the famous coach. You become an oarsman after you've raced 100 times.
There you go. They're first dropping knowledge already.
and Fairburn said that the best day to learn how to row is on race day, because you can learn. How does it go? It's you can learn to row by racing, but you can't learn to race by rowing.
Got it. There you go.
So anytime you get a chance to get multiple races in a non-championship event, you should go for it. Who cares if you win? It's the fact that you're getting that experience in. That's the way I view it.
Awesome. And then after Marietta, Grand Valley State was there for 3 years, and is now currently retired.
I was at Grand Valley for 14 years.
Grand Valley 14 years.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's an issue on the slide here, but that's okay. It's live TV, folks. So some of the things that John is responsible for or is very skilled in here is on the next slide. You talk about track record here. John's up there with the best of them. Recruiting, developing athletes. I think one of the things that John does very well is build culture, which is essential for successful teams that are healthy. Mentoring different other coaches, namely me, from a distance, and other people, I'm sure. Um, he has a great presentation. You presented at a conference this past year. Is that correct? There's a Rokon or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it was fun. It was basically on developing a program from the ground up. A full year's periodization plan, which included everything it entailed to get that to that terminal goal, from fundraising to social to training, you know, technique, competition, um, learning, you know, fun things. It was a lot of fun doing it, and it really brought back just some great memories. And I had great collaboration with friends, friend coaches, and former assistants who helped me along with it. And I got to tell you, I I uh, I was bouncing back from a very um, you know after having being forced to retire, and I was as down as the bottom as I could have been, and that was teaching was wonderful, and being part of this is wonderful. So anything I can help in any way, I'm glad to do it.
Wonderful.
It's helping more. To be honest, I believe this helps me more than it helps you. I don't mean to be selfish, but it everybody wins on this.
Yeah. So, with that said, I think, John's track record of, I would class it as being a systems thinker. I think if you're going to be a successful coach and build a program, you have to understand how all those parts of the system works. So I've had some experience watching John. Um, I wrote a book last year, and it's just a learn to row fundamentals. But a lot of the explanations of how to do things and what things feel like came in part from other people, but John definitely had his hand on that. So I just feel blessed that John wants to take the time to talk this through. um, so the topic of conversation, I'll go back to that, is the tip of the spear. And the reason I wanted to invite John onto the YouTube channel was I don't see a lot of videos out there about um, blade work. All right. And we're going to focus on one aspect of that, the tip of the spear. And I'm going to let John explain what he means by that. We've got a few slides here. John's going to talk through those slides. And then by the end of this, we'll go to what should this all look like when it comes together. Um, and then, I think that'll be enough for everybody to kind of, think about. And if you've got any comments to the video and you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try and answer them as best I can, or send them on to John. But I think our hearts are ones of giving, and we want to make sure that this gets out there. And I think this is going to be real valuable for you. So thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
And I think that quote there, Picasso says it pretty well too. So, all right.
I thought
So
we were pulling the bullet.
we're going to talk about the 4 points to good rowing. So, John, you got the reins here. Let me know what you need me to do in terms of the slides, but looking forward to what you have to say.
Yes, and thank you for the introduction, the opening, and I loved your book. It was just it's a must for anybody. What you ought to do is sell it to Peloton, and have Peloton use it as a manual, because it's that good.
Wow.
Anyway,
High price.
there's no question. Um, what, when I talk about rowing and to my teams right at the beginning of the season, I tell them right from day one, there's 4 points to good rowing. And they are, and this is something that all the good crews do around the world. Now, the process in which they teach may be different. As Fairburn said, whether you climb one side of the tree or whether you climb the other side of the tree, let them keep climbing. So regardless of how your process is, as long as you have a process and you keep at it, and but there's 4 points along this that you have to keep in mind are most important to developing beautiful rowing and and good teams. And first, it's body angles, and as Fairburn said, posture provides power. Posture precedes power. Um, and I, the first thing I teach, in fact, I spent a lot of time the first couple of days on swing picks with no slide, just back and arms, and then really learning how to establish the body angle with the appearance of the oar handle pulling the body out of the bow as opposed to the body following the oar handle out of the bow. And swing pick's the best time to teach that. It's very focused. And then once I'm satisfied with that, we start adding the slide, then we're at the full, and then we go to all the different drills we all use, pause drills, 1, 2, 3, 4. I call it reach, rock, roll to teach body angle. You know, reach with the hands, rock with the shoulders, into the onto the front of the seat, onto the balls of the feet, and glide into the bow. Chin's vertical, chin over the inside knee, long outside arm, high outside shoulder, rotating around the pin. But another important point is grip, how you grab it. Any sport that grabs something has a certain way that you hold it. A tennis racket, a racquetball, golf, lacrosse, whatever. And it's important how you hold it, and that grip. It's a loose but firm grip. Then next, and to me, the most important is the blade work. And the blade is a propeller, no different than your launch engine has a propeller to move it forward. The propeller is to a motor, as is the blade is to an oarsman
Hmm.
and the rest of the system, um, and his oar. And so it's the blade is the only thing that moves the boat. You could do 100 different movements in a boat, but it's only the blade that moves it. And so the blade is probably the least focused on topic once you get to, when I teach the body angle stuff, we're talking about from the beginning. But once you get to that point where you've established the body angles, you've established the grip, then the blade work is paramount focus. And at that point, I don't even coach the body. Unless it's major, uh, you know, um, but I coach the blade. I focus on the blade, and that comes from a fair. I didn't start that way, but after studying Fairburn and then doing it, I was like, oh my God, it makes a huge difference. And so I coached the blade, and we try to coach the blade to perfection, no different than a surgeon uses a scalpel, does the oarsman use the blade.
Hmm.
Um, and one of the things about blade work that I love, Fairburn would say, use your hand. He would say, I saw a man learn to do the high jump, or right, sitting in his armchair.
Hmm.
And what he was saying was, you sit and think about rowing. Put your hand out, put your hand out, and go through the motion by hand, and have your kids go through it. And they have a better understand what they're looking for, what it feels like. And and by the way, when they're rowing in sixes or in a controlled environment, I tell them, go ahead and look at your blade with your inside eye. Go ahead and look at your blade. It's okay to look out at a boat. I don't know why, so many getting this stringent, uh, you know, It almost like it looks like horse racing when they have those blinders on the side of
Yeah.
their heads, you know, and, uh, they're very rigid. You know, it should be relaxed, and you should be allowed to see your blade work. You know, no different than looking at your golf club. You know, you know. Well, you're supposed to keep your head down, but that's another story, which I don't do very well. So, but it's okay to look at the blade and see it going through that motion, the correct motion. Then relaxation it is putting it all together and it, you know, loosely erect, I call it. The whole thing with relaxation is the breathing, learning to breathe in their own in their own rhythm, so to speak. But and just to be relaxed, not stiff, and you know, learning to row with your feet out of the boat, out of the foot stretchers, with your eyes closed, and just listening to the boat sing to you,
Mm.
hearing the perfect catch, you know, feeling the perfect catch, allowing the oar handle to bring you forward, the momentum of the boat to glide you into the next drive. You know, without. And to me, that's like the most joyful part of our sport, the recovery. You know, so those are the 4 points that I teach in a nutshell.
So,
And
what's going on
go
this
ahead, I'm
slide,
sorry.
John? Yeah, so we got a rower on a machine. I've seen you with this machine. This is an add-on to Concept 2. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's
Yeah.
going on here?
First of all, that's a simple what I call the erg arm, and it attaches to the erg. Um, it's an adaptation from Gary Hartsoff and this guy in Dayton. I forgot his name. He actually took it and made it for me. And I said, "Oh, this is great. Now this is what we're going to do, and this and this, and that way we can have the same spread, and we can adjust the height just like it is in the boat, and so on." I have the schematic for that, so if anybody ever wants it, email me, or I'll give it to you, Coach, and you can
Yeah.
just put it on here so you have it for everybody in the future.
Okay,
But
that sounds. I'll put that email in the comments if that's okay.
I, this is Spencer West, who started out as a coxswain and grew. And his wife Victoria stroked one of our boats, and she's now the assistant at Minnesota. And they have a beautiful, beautiful baby. So I'm technically a rowing grandfather, um, and it's wonderful when I see his picture. It just brings back a great oarsman. He was actually in the fastest boat I ever men's boat I coached at Grand Valley, and that was a magical year. And that boat was the hallmark of good blade work. So he's demonstrating here blade work on the erg arm, and the points that I talk about is blade work is the most critical part of the stroke. Just like I said earlier, it's the propeller. Um, it The braid is the propeller that propels the boat. You know, we discussed that, and um, so I have to take my glasses on to read.
You're
I'm
good.
sorry.
It's
Um,
the endless chain, the racetrack oval conveyor belt, trace
yes,
handle.
yeah, and those are all concepts from other coaches. I'm a thief, by the way. Eric Gluckman said, "If you're not a good thief, you'll never be a good coach." So you got to be willing to steal everybody's idea. I'm I'm Roman. I'm a Sicilian. I'm a Roman. You know, we're the masters of assimilating culture and making it ours. You know, so and every coach that should be an art that every coach perfects, tries to perfect. for as long as they're coaching. And when they stop, you should not be coaching anymore. No offense.
I think that's the truth right there, guys. That's
So
I've had the benefit of many coaches, worked with many people, and I mean, it's like anything in life. You're sort of an amalgamation of the five people you spend the most time with. So you're taking things from different people and bringing them in, and yeah, you get your own spin on things, but we're all organic beings. We're not an island here. So I think it's a great point.
thanks, coach. I wish more young coaches would take that approach. Because it's just the amount of resources in coach education and stuff, the things that you're doing, Neil, are are wonderful. It's are vast compared to earlier, and this, and I'm hoping everybody can take this and pass it on.
Yep.
You know, and we've done our job.
Right.
Uh, so, um, so I talk about tracing the handle. I even have the kids write it down. Show me what a racetrack oval is. Now, should it be that wide or perhaps tighter? Um, and where the recovery line and the drive line are closer together as opposed to, you know, it, do we want it rounder or shorter? So on. And then try to trace it with your hand. Reach out your arm and reach out and trace a racetrack oval or a conveyor belt.
Mhm.
Um, I like the conveyor belt the most. The most Fairburn, the endless chain. That's from Fairburn, and that's a great article. I have a copy of that if you'd like it. Um, what I loved about Fairburn and the Fairburn family is they didn't take royalty. They didn't, and so on. This was for the rowing community, and in Coach Fairburn's name, I just think that's so cool, and that's probably the reason why guys like you, Neil, are doing things like this. But the endless chain, talks about the rowing hands are on this endless chain. The blade is on an endless chain. There's no beginning, no end to the stroke. Um, Now there's variations, of course, at the release where there's it appears to be a pause when it's just a a slowing down, so to speak, of the chain movement. I don't really subscribe to that. I more look for one and one, hands in and out at the same speed, at the same ratio, uh, um, in relation to the speed of the boat and in relation to the stroke rate. But um, it works for people, and if it works, I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change it. I'd perfect with you the way it works for you. Yeah. So as I said, whether you climb one side of the tree or the other, it still works. Let's keep climbing.
Awesome.
One of the things when I talk about blade work, though, you look at your hand, right? Think of your pinky finger. Think of your hand as the bottom edge of the blade. Then the tips of your fingers as the outer edge of the blade. The top of your hand, your thumb is the top edge of the blade. Your wrist as the shaft, and one hand up to your. See where my thumb is
Yep.
from the tip of my finger to my thumb. You see that, Neil?
Yep. I see it.
All right. That's what I call the water, where I put the watermark. Mike Thompson from Canada goes, "How many centimeters, John?" I say, "One hand." He said, "How many centimeters is that?" I said, "I don't know. You're a scientist." I just, I one hand. It works for me, and that's all I care. Do not wet the loom beyond that watermark. That's all. And
We've got a slide here, John, about the blade work and the picture of the oar. I kind of advanced it because we were talking about the dimensions of the oar in your hand. And there's
Yeah, well,
an interesting schematic here about a pole vaulter. So do you want to kind of let us know,
yes,
what the thinking is behind this graphic?
yeah. So we talk about edge control, the top edge, outer edge, bottom edge, right? And how we control the edges. The bottom edge, we focus on the drive. The top edge, we focus on the recovery. Uh, and the outer edge, that bottom corner is what we call the tip of the spear, where my picky finger, where I started my whole rant. Um, and the tip of the spear, it's like the spear of a pole javelin or a pole vaulter who plants that spear in a exact spot at the exact right time and uses the momentum to do his pole vault, whatever the correct term is for that.
Right.
Um, and from that fixed spot, you've heard people talk about reach the blade behind the tree and grab the tree,
Yep.
or set it into ice, or there's 100 different ways you could explain that. But to me, this is a great visual. You look at a javelin, right? A javelin doesn't go this way, then straight down.
Yep.
It comes down in an arc, and the more of a cleaner, flatter arc it has, the more of an arc it has, the further it goes. Um, and the steeper it goes in, the shorter it goes. And I see that in rowing all the time. I watch crews row, I'm like, Madonna, como bofada isso. How the heck can they do that? And it looks like an egg beater because they're just chopping at the water, chopping, 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 as opposed to taking the time, relaxing, and reaching the tip of the spear into the water. Um, and the important word there is into. Just as you slide into the catch,
Mm.
the bottom edge of the blade arcs back, that tip of the spear into the water, and the water really done right. It grabs the water, and it feels. The four most important words in coaching, by the way, are "it feels like this," and and it feels like the water is grabbing the blade as opposed to the blades grabbing the water. It hears like, and this is something what Fairburn talked about, the bell note, that certain sound. Baseball has that certain sound. Tennis has that certain sound. Golf has that certain sound. When it's hit, it's a home run. When it's hit, it's going to go 300 yards or whatever. There's that, and it's a beautiful sound. It's the bell note, and it's when that tip of the spear reaches into the water and grabs that exact spot, or as opposed to grabbing the spot. I think it's better said that it, as the placement happens, the water grabs the blade,
Mm.
and that's the feeling. And then you can feel it in your hands. If you feel like you tighten up, it's because you're grabbing the water. If it feels like, you can just watch the hands and see that if the thumb's relaxed, that the water's actually grabbing the blade. And at that point, you're hanging off the oar as opposed to pulling it. Now, which muscle groups are going to get engaged more or be used more if you're hanging off it as opposed to pulling off of it at the catch? Which, Neil?
Well, you're gonna see a far more engagement with posterior chain, quads, your lats. You're gonna be hanging through your lats. If you're grabbing at it, then there's a disconnection in where that force is traveling. So if you think about, that's where my brain goes when you say that. So the
You're
secret,
exactly
I
you're
mean,
exactly right. You're exactly right. And Sprackling would say, the second you break your arms, the load is in the arms. So to go a step further. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good.
That,
I mean,
that was
Fairbairn. You quote Fairbairn much better than I do. But it's one of those quotes in my book. Like this, the secret of the mastery of rowing is you learn how to use your body weight. Like that is the secret. Or words to that effect. I totally butchered that, but
yeah.
that's what I teach people when they come to me and they can't understand why they don't steady state well, or they can't get the split. And I'm like, well, first of all, let's take rate off the table and cap that, and then let's spend time learning how to use body weight. And that's this, like in those videos I saw, get about 5 pounds off the seat, use that body weight. You've got a great set of drills. It's almost worth a whole other video the way you teach that suspension.
Yeah.
So that could be another hour right there. But I've seen the way that you teach that, and this idea of not forcing it, and putting that blade in, and feeling that connection so that you can lever the body weight on the oar handle rather than pull. There's a definite difference in feel to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Fairburn said, I love quoting Fairburn. We're talking about somebody who wrote back coach that was very successful in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
And he is the Jules Verne of rowing. He's 100 years ahead of his time. And he said, when you've learned to use your body weight, then you've learned how to move the boat.
There you go. That's what I
And
was looking for.
so that's what supports you.
Yeah.
I have this book. I wanted to take a second to go run and grab it to show everybody. But this is an old book, and it's my Bible of rowing. Not to blaspheme the good Lord, but for the sport of rowing, that is the Bible.
Yeah.
Any rowing coach should have that and should be reading it.
I agree.
And it's a must,
It's,
along with
it's
the book Tribe, by the way, by Sebastian Younger. So anyway, sorry.
No, good stuff. Wonderful stuff. So we're going to advance here to the next slide, which is, we've talked a lot about the foundation of how to get this. This was a graphic that you gave me several years ago when I started to tune into your Facebook videos, and the term edge control came up. And, I think, I'm going to move that a little bit. But this is a graphic that is courtesy of Rowing Canada. The version I got from John was, one that was drawn out by hand, classic stuff. And John suggested I get a graphic designer to kind of, clean this up a little bit in a way, no pun intended. And so we thank Rowing Canada for this. We're going to give them a copy of it as well. But this is our basic edge control diagram. So John, why don't you talk us through this? I think an image is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, I love this. All my athletes have it, and my athletes that are past their novice year, I expect them to know this and show me with their hand exactly what this diagram. They have to explain it, so to speak. When I talk about edge control, as we talked about that propeller, if the blade's the only thing that moves the boat. We talk about that bottom edge and that sharp, clean blade work. The tip of the spear, the outer edge, the top edge. When we look at this diagram and we think of the recovery, right? The 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 lower edge, right, follows an elliptical path. That's the bottom edge, follows an elliptical path, right? and the top edge follows more of a uh, uh, what's boy
The
not
top, the upper edge is more of a squarer path, and
yeah, it's a
like
square. I didn't want to use the word square though. What's a stretched out square called? I
rectangle.
can't even. Thank you very much.
There you go. Glad I could help
I'm an
with the
old
sign,
guy. You got to
the
help me along.
geometry. You do the blade. I'll do the geometry.
I'm the history major. You're the scientist.
That's
All
right.
right. But the top edge is more of a square path, and the bottom edge is an elliptical path. So think about rowing on the square. Very simple, right? Well, then the top edge, if you watch it and do it just simply with your hand, you'll see, you know, top edge follows a square path. And then when you add the feather, the bottom edge follows an elliptical path.
Hmm.
And I really like that. And if you look at the blade, when we add from the square and we start adding the feather, we look at the bottom edge, right, falls on to the water on its hinge. And the hinge being like the top edge of the blade being like a sliding hinge. Think of a door turned sideways, and you're sliding it, and then all of a sudden the door opens up, and
Yeah.
and so on. That's sort of how we're looking for. So the bottom edge squares back, and what you're doing is squaring down to the water. The worst thing I hate hearing is squaring up.
Yep.
Any assistant who says that, I give them 3 days to correct it. Um, and I'm serious. I because I believe it's that important. That's the most critical part of the stroke, and that's where the boat's moving the slowest, and that's where you have to be the most efficient. And if you learn to do that, and by squaring up, you tend to reach into the water, break the arms, and God knows what else. And then people wonder why they have bad back problems and so on. Um, you know, so the, at the catch, we're talking about that sliding hinge, the bottom edge of the blade falling into the water and falling on its hinge. And if we look at our hand, we look at our thumb, right? Think of that as the hinge, and the blade falls to the water
Hmm.
on a hinge. It doesn't go up and down, it goes down. So for that to happen, you have to have enough clearance off the water in the first place.
Yep.
Um, and with, but not too much. I kind of, to be honest with you, I liking the tops of your knuckles on the outside of hand to the top edge of the blade. And on the recovery or on the drive, on the recovery and the drive, I want them to have that edge equal with the blade top edge equal with the hand. Does that make sense?
Can you run that
Did I,
by me one more time? Because I'm trying to
absolutely.
visualize it. Like the
All
top
right.
edge. Go
All
one
right.
more
You think about
time.
it. I'm rowing port,
Yep.
right? And this is my outside hand.
Yep.
And my inside hand, I look for two hands apart. And the top edge when the blade's on the square, I expect on the recovery, I'm sorry,
Yep.
when the blade's in recovery, I expect the blade to be at the same height as the top edge of that outside hand.
Okay. Great.
So, and that's the height off the water that I look for. Not everybody does, but I look for that high recovery,
Yeah.
squaring down at the last minute.
The,
Pulling. Sorry, go ahead.
no, you're good. It's a really good point, and I think when I think of the rowing stroke and what I've learned, you know, um, I mean, for me, not talking about the edge control aspect of it, but what the first thing I do with somebody is make sure they're sitting on their seat correctly. That
Yeah.
Without that, you don't have anything. So
Yeah.
that same idea of how do you get a good catch? Well, you need to release correctly, and you need to, weight the oil enough with the right height, just as you've described. Because if you're not clearing the water and there isn't enough space to do that top hinge, the only option you've got if your blade is too close to the water is to come off the water to square down. And if
Yeah.
you don't have that, sometimes I think we look at the problem, which would be, for example, missing water or skying at the catch, but don't look at the upstream, like, well, what really caused that problem, and fix that, and then you fix the other thing. And it's just how I think about. So it's just my little contribution to what you're saying is how I think
No,
about teaching that.
that was that was beautiful. I just learned a few things, and that goes with the endless chain. And
Yep.
it's all part of link in the chain. Um, yeah, no, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, I
So
think. Go ahead.
then let me talk about the release.
Yeah. Thank
The
you.
the bottom edge, right, follows an elliptical path, as I said, and the release, the bottom edge comes out of the water, and the top edge leads to the bow. Anytime the top edge is out of the only time the top edge is dry is when it's moving towards the bow. And I want the top edge to release and the bottom edge to follow it out of the water. Um, you know, so I call it feathering to the bow.
Okay.
And you can see the difference if you feather at the body and pause there. The bottom edge feathers to the stern. And what I look for is for the bottom edge to feather to the bow.
Got it.
And there's a big difference. Is it this way when we feather, or is it this way when we feather? This is more of an elliptical path
Yep.
that we're talking about, and what the diagram explains so darn well. I wish I'd come up with this. I just, you know, I take smart people like you, listen, and teach. I'm a teacher, and then figure out how to teach it. So
Well,
that's
we could do a 60-minute video on this slide right here, but I wonder, and you tell me, we have some video on the next piece here
yeah.
because
Before you get there, a good exercise that I used to have all my athletes do. I would go out and procure um, from my secretary's desk a pile of rubber bands
okay,
and take it down to the boathouse and have them all hold a rubber band in their two thumbs. I said, you see how round that is, right? Now, as you stretch it, see how those lines come together closer and closer.
yeah,
Well, think about that being the top edge, the bottom edge. Think about the conveyor belt, the endless chain. Now, as you stretch it further, what happens? That line becomes closer and closer together,
yep,
the difference between the upper and lower, and as you stretch it out. And what's more important, your thumbs are farther apart. What does that mean? Length. You
right,
have a longer stroke. And so now what I want you all to do is shoot each other with a rubber band. And you guys on this side, I want you to pull it back halfway. You guys on this side, pull it back double, and go ahead and shoot each other. And and they do, and they're laughing and whatever. And I say, who gets the bigger whack? Well, the same thing with rowing, guys. It's just such a great visual and explanation of that.
yeah.
So, boy, I'm good at coming up with stupid stuff.
That's great. Hey, you got to make it fun. I mean, you've got to make it. You've got to have these things. because
I'll make it fun for me too.
you do, you do. So, do you want to proceed to this video and we can show folks,
Yeah.
like we've talked we said a lot of build up, but I think, where my mind is and where other people is, well, what does this actually look like in practice? So we're going to we're going to do a quick shift here. So forgive the technology shift, but we want to give you a good experience here. And
Neil, can I explain a little about the video first, real quick?
yes, what do you want to, let me just do this and away you go. So it's just us talking right now. We don't have the video up.
Well, what I wanted to say was this is a U.S. rowing coaching video that I would watch every day as a young coach, every day religiously for 30 minutes until it was embedded in my mind's eye. And this was done by Chris Korzanowski and Curtis Jordan many back in the 80s. And I just want to give them credit. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's very valid. Thank you for doing that. So I'm going to just put this up on our screen so the viewers can see it. I'm going to
And
go
you can
ahead.
say that. You can say that. I don't need to say that, but I appreciate it if you did.
All right. So you should be seeing this video that our viewers are seeing right now.
Yes.
So give me a. I mean, I'm gonna reset it here. We'll play it at full speed first, and then we'll slow it down, and we can do frame by frame as we address different things.
Beautiful.
Okay. So here we go.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And we should address them together. I can't tell you how many times I've watched this. And when I was a young coach, I would watch it 30 minutes every day until it was embedded in my mind's eye, until I could see it in my sleep. Then I would practice that exact motion with my hand sitting in the chair.
All right. So that was the whole video. I don't know where you want me to start with. You want to start with the release, or you want to start with where do you want to
Well,
start?
you know, to me, the stroke begins at the release.
Okay.
But
So let's go back a
but
release. There we go.
now, if we look at the release and see how the blade's pushing the water, there's a pocket behind the blade of air, and it's clean. Pause it there, pause it there. And what we're looking for here are dark puddles. You leaving dark puddles, not white puddles, but dark puddles. Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a splash. Plus, if you look, the color of the blade, and so on might make a difference. I think this is a Harvard blade.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful king boat. Oh God, I love those boats. But the if you look at the blade here, think about the top edge, how it comes out of the water, and the bottom edge feathers to the bow. It releases to the bow. It doesn't feather in the water. The bottom edge doesn't feather to the stern. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's out.
Exactly. You see how that bottom edge feathered to the bow?
Yep.
And then the top edge is at a beautiful height off the water. It's equivalent to that outside hand right there. And it follows an even path. Relaxed. Holding the feather. Holding the feather. I used to say, hold the feather till you could see the whites of their eyes. Battle of Bunker Hill. My guys understand, hold the feather till you pull the trigger. But so at this point right here, You're at a little over half slide. Coming in, pause right here.
Yes, sir.
Pause, pause right here. In the last 4 inches of the slide, the bottom edge of the bottom edge of the blade begins its final descent to the water. In the last inch of the slide, the blade actually touches the water, and where the water grabs the blade and darts again. That way, we waste no legs, and it's and that timing is like, well, timing is the most critical thing. That timing is going to help you hit that home run. Get that exact spot. And you see here how the bottom edge of the blade reaches back. The bottom edge falls on its hinge. You can see how it's falling on its hinge, and then the tip of the spear, that corner, right there, right there. Ah, ah, ah. Keep
There.
going. One more. There.
There.
How many times did I say there? That's what I meant.
We got it.
That right there. How much splashing do you see?
Not very much at all.
That's what I call the Greg Louganis catch. Now, for you youngsters, that was a great diver who, back in whenever, used to hit tens all the time. In fact, I would sit by my team's blade and watch their blade and coach one at a time and say, oh, that's a 7. That's a 6. That's a 5. The Russians were tough on you. The French judge really messed you up, in joking. But I'm looking for that 10, as little splash as possible. Now, there's going to be some splash, and the splash you're going to see it's a little bit of a vertical, and then the splash arcs to the stern if it's done correctly. There you have that splash. It looks like a check mark right there. And when you go to drive, and see how it starts curving?
Yeah.
The splash water. That's the signature of a beautiful catch, and as a result of what you did out of the water, not what you're doing in the water. In rowing, one thing you got to remember is it is a conveyor belt. It's an endless chain. And on the chain, it's the few steps that precede it that cause what's going to happen further on the chain. So that recovery is going to help you have a better drive. I hope I explained that well.
You did. You did.
And the depth is important here. Now, how white is that puddle, Coach?
Doesn't look very white to me. But
No, that's what I call deep. That's what I call dark puddles.
yeah.
Not deep, but dark puddles. In fact, when they place the blade, I tell my athletes, think about putting half the blade in the water. Now, is that really what happens?
Yeah.
No, but it's what it feels like. It feels like you're putting only half the blade in the water, but the blade, the water grabs the blade at that point. But we see that deep dark puddle, and the front of the blade is moving the boat. I would say anytime the blade's in the water, actually the back of the blade should be dry all the time. All the time. When it's in the air and on the drive, it should be dry. Now, is it really dry? No. The idea is to develop that pocket of air and pushing the blade and releasing over that pocket of air. And you can see that perfectly in this explanation. I wish we could get a little closer up on the blade itself, but the blade work and the tracing here is like, this is a 10. This is something that, as a coach, I think it should be mandatory for you, your assistants, whoever, to watch this and have it in your mind's eye. And when you see that your athlete's doing that, you're going to send your crew to the start line with confidence.
Let's watch it one more time in full motion. Um,
he doesn't have a watermark, but see how little water goes up that shaft?
Yeah. It's just clean. I mean, it's
Oh,
precise. It's, this embodiment of being a craftsman on the water. And yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
yeah. I, I I love watching this. I just love watching good rowing.
Yeah. I
And,
mean,
when my crews do that, when I see athletes starting a row like this, I like I hardly ever coach them anymore. I let them do the coaching because at that point their eyes are a much better coach than I'll ever be because their eyes they can feel what their eyes see, and when they learn how to feel it, and they know what they're feeling, they're all they got to do is just get more fit and put the time in, and they're going to be as fast as they want to be or as fast as they can be. This has been fun. Thank you. I thank you.
thank you, Coach. Um, I think, yeah, that was a wonderful hour there of conversation. Um, like like I said at the beginning, gratitude to you for everything you've done influencing my coaching career. I'm going to continue to learn. I hope this is not the last conversation we have about stuff. It seems like we could probably do 10 of these for different things. But I think my heart on this was this is not something that's talked about. You don't see a lot of it on YouTube. Um, and when I saw this from you, I thought, here's somebody that could share and in your generosity of spirit have done so. Um, and I can't wait to get this out and let people know, and hopefully they will learn and they will pass along. And one of the things you said to me early on when we connected was, when I said thanks, coach, to one of your videos, and you said, I teach because I was taught.
Yeah.
And that's, I think what we can hope for when we work with our athletes is that they will carry things forward and then pass them on, and in our own way can help improve the lives of others. So, Coach, thank you for everything you've done for rowing, and for just your generosity of time. And I think this is a great resource, and I look forward to hopefully collaborating with you in the future. So thanks for being
Yeah.
here. Any last thoughts?
Yeah. I loved it. I got paid to drive a motorboat.
Yeah,
I had the best job in the world. I miss it.
yeah.
I really miss it.
Well,
Thank you.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
I'll do this anytime, any day, and your only issue is shutting me up.
Okay, that's not a bad problem to have at all. So thank you everybody for tuning in. If you got value out of the video, and I don't see there's any way you couldn't have, please like the video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. We would love it if you would share this content with others. We think it's of value, and I certainly learned a lot and continue to do so. And so we look forward to seeing you on the next video. But from me and John, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.